Hey Adventurers, so today's going to be a video that I am titling Series That Defined My Year, or Top 10 Series That Defined My Year, or something along those lines. This is a video idea that I actually saw and stole from Books with Bengus Khan, Ben over at Books with Bengus Khan, and he did this video where he went through and looked at the past year of his reading and what series he read a lot of, basically, in the year. I liked the idea. I didn't think that I would be able to do a top 10 series like that, because I didn't think that I would have 10 that I would have read significant amounts of that I could put on this list. But then I started going through them and counting them up, and I've got more than 10. So we will start at the bottom. There was four almosts actually that I did. The first one that I ended up just completely removing was the only reason I had it on here to start with was because it was 2 books, and I figured that it might belong on here, but it doesn't quite. That first one was Harry Potter. I read the first 2 books in the Harry Potter series. Again, I read them again, and I counted the pages, and it only came up to like 600 and some pages, so it didn't quite make the list. The next 3 almosts, one of them has 3 books in the series, and so it should be on here, except that the page count for the 3 books is fairly low, and so the page count for the total is fairly low. And that is the More Than a Human universe by J.R. Carroll, the books being More Than a Gunslinger, More Than a Vampire, and More Than a God War. So I read all 3 of those books this year. The page count totaled, at least for the paperback version that I was looking at, they totaled 899 pages. So not a ton of page count there, but I did read 3 books in that series. The 3 books that are out in that series, or in that universe more. It's not a series. The series is the Unbreakable Trilogy, with More Than a Gunslinger being a standalone in that world. But I included the universe as a whole. The next one that I have is Legends of the First Empire by Michael J. Sullivan. I read 2 books in the series, Age of Myth and Age of Swords, for a total of 942 pages, so again, just shy. You'll see the threshold here in a second here once I get into the actual 10, but it's just shy that top 10 series that I actually made progress in. And had I read a 3rd book in that series at this point, it definitely would have been on that series, because it would have pushed me up probably closer to, what is that, 1,400 pages, 1,300, 1,400 pages, something along those lines. Anyways, so that's another almost and then the 3rd almost is the Leatherstocking Tales by James Fenimore Cooper. I read The Deerslayer in the beginning of the year, and I just finished Last of the Mohicans the other day. This one would be higher, as it is, it's 1,044 pages. It would be higher if the font size in my copy of Last of the Mohicans was bigger. It's rather small. I don't know how you can see that, but it's rather small, especially compared to the font size in my copy of The Deerslayer. So let's see if I can get those to compare. So we've got, yeah, I don't know how you can see that, but it's significantly smaller in The Last of the Mohicans. If it was bigger, then it would have probably been up closer to 1,500 pages or something like that, which would have put it significantly higher on the list. Anyways, so those are the 3 almosts. They just didn't quite make it on there. But now we get into our actual top 10. I'll start at the bottom and work my way up. At the bottom with 1,038 pages read and 3 books in the series is the Protectors of Protani series by Mike Molman. This is Becoming a Druid, Sins and Sorrows, and To Speak with Elders. These books, actually the author sent me the audiobook for all of them, and so I listened. All of these books I listened to this year. I didn't physically read any of them, I don't believe. There might be 1 or 2 random ones in here that I physically read or something like that, but the majority of them were definitely audiobooks. And Protectors of Protani, 3 books, that's good, but it only accumulates to 1,038 pages total read. Once book 4 comes out, that'll jump up there, obviously, because I'll have read book 4 fairly well. Hopefully I'll be able to read book 4, or rather I'll book 2.5 rather quickly after it comes out, but I'm not sure how that will work yet. Then in the number 9 slot is Threadlight by Zach Argyle. I listened to all 3 of the books in this series, Voice of War, Stones of Light, and Bonds of Chaos. And this one totals 1,104 pages, and so it just beats out that 1,038 pages. Oh, I just realized that I messed up. Leatherstocking Tales actually has more pages than Protectors of Protani with the 2 books that I read. So technically, Protectors of Protani should be in my 3 almost, and Leatherstocking Tales should be in my top 10. That's alright. I'm not going to look too closely at that, and we're just going to pretend like I didn't notice it. Anyways, so Threadlight is at 1,104 pages read for the 3 books in the series. Let's see, what else have we got? So next in line is the Redwall series with 4 books having read. Technically this is not entirely accurate because as of the time of reading this, and probably by the end of the year, I still won't have finished the last one, but I put it on here anyways because it'll be finished early in January for sure. But anyways, the 4 books that I have on here are Triss, Outcast of Redwall, Loamhedge, and Rackety Tam. And Rackety Tam is the one that I haven't finished yet. I'm a good 100 or so pages into the book, but I haven't finished it yet. I actually have it here. Let's see. I am on page 116 of 368. So I'm about a third of the way through that one. Doesn't quite belong on this list, but I put it on there anyways because I am currently reading it and I will get to it very quickly. For a total page count of 1,549 pages of the Redwall series that was read today, or this past year in 2023. I thought that I'd listened to more than that. I thought that I had listened to more than 4 books in this series, but apparently I didn't, and that's what it is. Continuing on up, I have The Heroes of Olympus by Rick Riordan. So this has 3 books read, 1,659 pages read, and the 3 books that I read in this series are the last 3 books in the series, and that is The Mark of Athena, The House of Hades, and The Blood of Olympus. These were all rereads, they were all audio listens, so it was just, they really don't even belong on this list because I've already read them, but it is what it is, and so they're here now. I don't really need to talk about that any further. Then we've got, moving on up, actually the next one, I don't really want to talk about it this way, but I'm going to. So I want to combine 2 of the things, but I can't quite because the way that I'm viewing them, they are kind of different series, so I'm going to do it differently. You'll understand in a second here. Anyways, the next one at 4 books read and 1,803 pages is Brandon Sanderson's Secret Projects. Not really a series because they're not a series, but they kind of are in that we treated them like a series in the way that we received them and then read them. So we've got Tress of the Emerald Sea, The Frugal Wizard's Handbook for Surviving Medieval England, Yumi and the Nightmare Painter, and then The Sunlit Man. So these 4, I did read all 4 of these for a total of 1,803 pages. Again, I listened to all these on audiobook, although I do intend to read these physically at some point in the future. The next series on the next series on this list is the Collation Saga, with having 4 books read for 2,136 pages total. This is the only one where I include the same book twice on the list because I read the same book twice in the year, and that is Bone Shroud. I read Bone Shroud at the beginning of the year, right when it first came out, and then I read Deathless Beast and Bone Shroud again in preparation for Gloves of Eons book 3, and so I read book 2, then book 1, 2, and 3, and so I'm counting it because it's the same series. Anyways, that is a total of 2,136 pages read in that series. There is also a novella, which is, I can't remember what the novella is titled off the top of my head, and I haven't finished it yet, but I did start reading it. It's on ebook, I have it on my phone, and so I don't read it very often, but it is there, and I've read a couple pages. I think maybe I'm almost halfway through that one or something like that, or a third of the way, I can't remember exactly. So they're somewhere around that 2,136 pages total having read for that one. Then we go up to the next, I think we're now into my top 4. Yes, I've got 4 series left. And this is the one that I kind of wanted to talk about at the same time as the Secret Projects, and that is the Cosmere. I read 5 Cosmere books this year. Of course, 3 of them were the Secret Projects, the 3 Cosmere Secret Projects, which is Tress of the Emerald Sea, Yumi and the Nightmare Painter, and then The Sunlit Man. But I also read, and I don't have a physical copy of it, so I'm not going to I'm just going to show a picture here. I read The Lost Metal, which is Sanderson's, or the last book in Mistborn Era 2, and I read The Emperor's Soul, which is a novella set on the world of Sel, which is the same world as Elantris takes place on. But I read it from my Arcanum Unbounded, so I don't have just a specific Emperor's Soul book to hold up, so it's just from the Arcanum Unbounded book, but I did read that one as well. And so That comes to a total of, the Cosmere comes to a total of 5 books read this year for 2,417 pages. Again, that's Trust of the Emerald Sea, The Emperor's Soul, The Lost Metal, Yumi and the Nightmare Painter, and then The Sunlit Man. Continuing on up into my top 3, each of these have 7 books that have been read in the series or in the world or whatever. However I'm combining them. That's what I'm trying to say in order to get these stats. And so the first one with 2,347 pages, 7 books read in 2,347 pages, is the Tolkien's Legendarium. So I read, again, this is not actually completely accurate yet. It will be by the end of the year, hopefully. But I always start out the year with Lord of the Rings, so I read Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring, Two Towers, and Return of the King. So it's either 4 books or 7 books, depending on how you count it, because those 3 are 1 book. 5 books. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 books or 7 books, sorry. But I read Lord of the Ring, or Fellowship, Two Towers, Return of the King at the beginning of the year. And then I read, I listened to Silmarillion and Children of Hurin. And then I've been reading physically pretty much all year since like April or something like that. I've been reading Tales from the Perilous Realm, which is fantastic. Been loving every minute of it. But I'm taking it slow, and I'm now actually trying to get through it and finish it up so that I can end the year with The Hobbit like I always try and do, or have The Hobbit be one of my reads in December. So I end the year with The Hobbit and then start the new year with Lord of the Rings is kind of my plan. And so I have read all of these, at least I will have read all of these by the time the year ends, hopefully, and that includes finishing up Tales from the Perilous Realm, which I have like 20 pages left, I believe, of, and then The Hobbit, which won't take me that long to read. I've read it several times before. I know what I'm getting into. If I need to, I can just stick on the audiobook and finish it up real fast. Is there anything else that I need to talk about with this series? No. So we will now move on to number 2. I don't have the entire series, so I'm going to put a picture of it up here instead. And that is Rune Lords by David Farland. I read 7 of the 8 books this year. One of them was last year. And I think it was December of last year, I read the first book in the series, which is The Rune Lords or The Sum of All Men. And then over the course of the next 8 months, because we skipped 1 month, we meaning Nico from Nico's Book Reviews and I, both read Rune Lords, or read the other 7 books in the series, and also Liam Himbar from Liam's Lyceum has joined in and has completed the series as well. Anyways, completed the series as far as we can because book 9 has not been published since the death of the author. Anyways, 7 books in the Rune Lord series that we read this year, that is Brotherhood of the Wolf, Wizardborn, The Lair of Bones, Sons of the Oak, Worldbinder, The Wormling Horde, and Chaosbound. And that totals 2,727 pages, at least with the first edition hardback of these books, because I have 4 of those and I like them, and that's the standard that I went by with these. The standards that I go by for all of these is kind of different depending on where I got the stats from. But I tried to be consistent for the most part. Anyways, that leads us to number 1, and it's not really a surprise if you've been following the channel, but it's also kind of a surprise at the same time. Anyways, this is Wheel of Time is my number 1 for books read and pages read at the same time, and that is 7 books read, like I already mentioned, 5,661 pages read, and I tried to use the mass market paperback for all of those to get a consistent page count, and I do have 6 of the 7 that I read physically, and so this is where I took page numbers from. This one, Shadow Rising, is the only mass market paperback that is not in the same edition as all these other ones that I have, and so it's kind of might be a little bit different. But this is the 6 books. I should go through them real quick. I have Shadow Rising, Fires of Heaven, Lord of Chaos. Then I read New Spring in between Lord of Chaos and A Crown of Swords, and then I read Path of Daggers, and I am currently listening to Winter's Heart, but it'll definitely be done by the end of the year. So those are the 7 books that I have read for a total of 5,661 pages, and that is because this is only 6 books here because I don't own New Spring, and so I can include that in this stack that I'm holding up here. That's a lot of books, really. A lot of books in series. I made a lot of progress in series. I finished what series did I start and finish this year? I started Threadlight last year, but then I started and finished it this year as well. Protectors of Britannia is all this year. More Than a Human Universe is all this year. Collation Saga, was complete. I read all that's out in that series so far this year. Secret Projects is all this year. As always, Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit and The Silmarillion, and those other two. The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit is every year, but those other ones are not quite every year. Rune Lords, finished up Rune Lords this year. I made a lot of progress on Wheel of Time this year, so I feel like I'm doing pretty solid in terms of making progress on series. I'm sure eventually I will have another series check-in where I talk about how I'm doing on my series and stuff like that, but that won't be for a while. Hopefully I can get it hopefully I can film it soonish, but I don't know, we'll see what happens with that. Anyways, that is my video. Those are the series that kind of define my year. Those are the series that took up the most amount of time in my year, in my reading this year. So thank you guys for watching an Erudite adventure. We are at the time of recording this and at the time that this will be going up, we are still posting lots of videos, but it will soon drop back down to 2 videos a week. Thank you guys for watching an Erudite adventure. We will see you guys again soon. Stay well.